What's up, guys? This is BOLO, and we're playing a game called Moonlighter today. It's a really awesome indie game that ultimately has a really simple game loop that can be kind of repetitive, but it really doesn't feel like it all too much, just because I feel like those core mechanics are locked down. So essentially what Moonlighter is you're this shopkeeper who by daytime sells things and by nighttime goes out into the dungeons and collects loot to sell in your shop. And of course, the main storyline of the game is centered around those dungeons, and kind of shown in this diagram here, you have 4 sub-level dungeons, like 1, 2, 3, 4 as it shows on here, that all eventually unlock the 5th dungeon that will essentially be where you fight the final boss of the game. And the mechanics are very simple. A couple of attack moves and different weapon choice and armor choices that I think add a lot of variety to the game. And those little small differentiating factors, I think, give this game a ton of replayability. Like, in the weekend I bought the game, I beat it, I rushed through it, and I replayed a ton of it, and I probably put like 30 hours in. Now, for people who love Stardew Valley, and I love that game, but in that game there's a lot of, like, most of the game is interacting with the community, and you'll notice here, like, the responses from the people are really generic as to what part of the storyline you're in, but there's no relationships to develop or anything like that. But as you progress, you unlock upgrades for the town and for your shop, and so there's progression in the game that way too. But anyway, I kind of wanted to give a brief introduction on it because I plan on doing at least a few videos on this game. I really like it a lot, and I think there's a lot to it. I think everyone should play it. It's totally worth it. And if you're one of those people who likes to wait for the right time to buy this game, it goes on sale in normal Steam sales. I think it's worth it full price. That's what I paid for it, to be honest. So anyway, without talking about it too much more, I'm going to go and do some work in the first dungeon. So this is a brand new save file. I've done just like the beginning tutorial stuff on this world, and I kind of wanted a fresh start to introduce this game to the channel. Another thing I'll mention is that the game feel of this game is super well put together. The music is just really put together. The audio cues as you're in town at different shops or in the dungeons is just amazing. But ultimately, it's like a Zelda ish game. Like those classic adventure elements, but it's really simple. Not too long storyline, but with a lot of depth in terms of mechanics and what you can really do to explore them. Ooh. Okay. I've heard other people talk about what their opinion is on the variety of monsters throughout the dungeons as well, and I feel like I feel like it's good. I feel like there's a good progression, a good variety of monsters that kind of show different abilities and stuff throughout. A good thing to understand about this game, though, before you go after it is an RPG with rogue-lite elements. So each dungeon has 3 floors and a dungeon boss, and if you die in the dungeon, I'll show you in a sec. If you die in the dungeon, you lose all this stuff in here, you only keep the top row and what you're wearing in your gold. So it's like a rogue-lite element, and there's a small exception to this, but when you die in the dungeon, you have to start at the first floor again. You'll have to restart it completely. And a lot of people have compared this game. Oh my gosh, I've compared it to like Enter the Gungeon. I've only played a little bit of Enter the Gungeon, and I think they're pretty different in a lot of ways. I personally like the overall feel of this one more, but I think in terms of like variety and depth of content, I'll be honest, I think from what I can tell, Enter the Gungeon actually has more. I could be totally off on that. Like one thing, classic RPG element that this game doesn't have that I really wish it had is random equipment. And it has that to a small extent, especially in the DLC. But ultimately, any piece of equipment that you can get is craftable, and that's actually the main way you're going to get equipment is by crafting it. So the next, or I shouldn't say that because I really don't know, but one of the next videos I want to do is, like, if I hit up this is the Golem dungeon, the first dungeon, that's what it's called. I want to do a video where if I run through the Golem dungeon like, I don't know, 10 or 100 times or whatever, ooh, I'm going to stay away from that for now. But if I run through the Golem dungeon, like, ouch. What is the average loot per run? Oh yeah, and I don't want to give everything away, but like that B button in the corner, that's my pendant. For if I have 200 coins, I can use my pendant, and it will take me safely out of the dungeon with all my items. Come on. There we go. Part of the problem is I don't have 200 coins, and so I'm going to have to get 200 coins. But I'm going to beat this first mini-boss here. Each of the first 2 floors of every dungeon is a mini-boss, and when you get to the first couple floors in the first dungeon, you get different types of pendants that help you in different ways. Oh man, I'm not doing so hot. Okay. So the trick with this guy is when he's about to do that sword swipe, you roll away, and like I didn't do there. And then when he did that shockwave one is to be already away and roll towards him. So anyway. Here's what I was talking about. So I'm on the second level of the Golem dungeon. And here we get a different kind of pendant. They'll give us a little diagram here. And what this one does is it lets me recycle items for quick money in the dungeon, much cheaper than if it's like a salvage, so that I can get out without dying. And so if I recycle a couple of these items, I'll recycle the ones with curses, and now I can escape. No, I think this floor requires 300. Yep. So we'll just recycle, all these. And we'll get a little more loot before we leave. But ultimately, this video is kind of like an intro to what I'm going to be doing for the next little bit. I'll be doing this game. I've actually been playing like at least 3 or 4 new games in the last, I want to say like a couple weeks, month. I've been playing Wardview, another indie title. I started playing Destiny 2, and I really enjoyed it, but I'll be honest, I feel like I'm only going to play a game once in a while, because for those of you who know this channel well, I play a lot of like really calm-paced indie type games like Minecraft and Cube World and this, and I like intense games like that, but I definitely feel like I know I have a hard time playing them for long periods of time. So yeah, this is what the pendant does. And here we are back in town. What I should have done when I started the video is started by selling things in the shop. But I didn't, because I wanted to show you guys the dungeon. Anyway, I list my items here, and based on the customer's reaction and my notes, I can price items that they'll like, and ultimately it's finding the sweet spot between like keeping the customer happy and getting as much money as I can out of the items. And that's essentially the premise of the game. And you progress in the town by building it with your money and your wealth, as well as getting through the dungeon and finding out what the dungeons are all about and everything. But that was like a little intro, what I'm doing, what's coming up. And yeah, I just want to have fun with it. I hope you guys do. You guys do too. Hopefully, through this, you can, like, me personally, I can find more of a way to connect with you guys as an audience and provide more value to you guys. Ultimately, just have fun along the way too. So, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye.